Hey you guys, I'm going to show you how I use my rose petal overlay. In the zip file, you have 3 PNG files, and all you need to do is select all 3 of them and drag and drop them right onto your photo. And if you need to resize the rose petals, you can. Make sure that you hit this little button right here so that way your proportions stay the same. Okay, all those are open. And as you can see, we have focal plane petals, foreground petals, and background petals. And I like to start with the background petals. So let's turn off the foreground and the focal plane. Now the background petals are meant to look like they are behind our subject. That's why they're smaller, because they're farther away from the camera, and they're blurry because they are not in our focal plane. So let's create a layer mask, and I have a black brush here, and when I paint black on my mask, it hides those areas on that layer. So I'm taking away the background petals from our foreground and also from the focal plane, because these petals are supposed to be behind our subject, not in front of them. Okay. Now let's work on our focal plane petals. Alright, I already know that I want to move a couple petals around. So this opened up as a smart object for me here in Photoshop. And if you actually want to move any petals around, you need to rasterize the layer. Okay. So I'm looking here, and I want to make it look like there are a few petals floating in the water. So I'm going to grab my selection tool here, and I'm going to grab this petal right here and hit Control T, and I'm going to make it look like it fell into this water here, and it's half in the water. So that's there. And then also I want to take these petals and I'm going to move them right over here. And I want to make this petal look like it's halfway down in the water as well. So I'm going to grab my black paintbrush and create a layer mask. And I'm just going to come in here and paint on it to make it look like it's sunk down in the water. Alright, perfect. Okay, now I'm going to make my brush a little bigger, and I need to get rid of any focal plane petals that are not in our focal plane. Like this is in the foreground, so those need to go. This one I don't really like. This one's in our focal plane, or in our foreground. And then I'm just going to take a look and see any petals that I don't like. Just get rid of them. This you have to do by eye. There's no magic formula for it. Alright, I like the way that looks. Alright, now let's work on our foreground petals. And I'm going to resize this layer a little bit. So I'm going to go Control T and make sure you hit this little box so your proportions stay the same. And I'm just going to make these a little bigger. And also I think I'm going to move them a little. I didn't want this blob right on her back, so I moved it off to the side just a little. Okay. And then also, if you want to add even more depth to your photo, you can duplicate the foreground layer. And then if you go Control T, you can make it even bigger, and it'll add like a whole nother layer of petals even closer to the camera. And just move it around until you get it to look how you want it to. You can also flip your layers, you can rotate them, you can do whatever you want with them. I like that. Alright, so see, this was without that extra layer, and then with. Just adds extra depth. Okay, and then the other thing, if you want to change the color of your petals, in Elements you'll have to do this one layer at a time by, let's see, what you do is you click on each layer and you can go Image, Adjustments, Hue Sat, and if you want to, you can change the hue. I don't really want to, but I would like to saturate my color a little more and also darken it up a little, reduce the lightness. Okay. But I'm in Photoshop, so I'm going to do all of my rose petals as a group instead of layer by layer. So I have all of my layers selected, not my background layer, but all of my rose petal layers. And I'm going to go Layer, Group Layers, and then I'm going to create a Hue Sat adjustment layer and create a clipping mask. So now whatever changes I make here will only be applied to my rose petals and not my background. Okay, so like I said, I want to increase the saturation and bring down the lightness a little, and I really like the way that looks. Okay, one thing I do want to change now that I'm looking at it, I don't like this blob on her back, so those were my foreground petals, so I'm just going to make a layer mask there, and I have a black brush. I'm just going to paint that off. And also on my other foreground layer, get rid of another one there. Okay. Okay, perfect. All right, there is the finished product. If you've purchased my rose petal overlay and you do something great with it, I would love for you to stop by my page and show me. Thank you. Bye.